out here?
So maybe we should just get going and he can fill it when he gets here.
Yeah, so we got till 11:15.
11:50. Once again, we would like to welcome everybody for being here today on this beautiful Sunday at Seattle Hempfest. Give yourself a hand for getting up early and showing up at Seattle Hempfest for this. This is going to be an interesting panel because I've been involved with this issue for 25 years now, and I think few things have changed as much as the media has. The laws have not changed as much as the media has. And so we're going to be, this panel is going to be talking about the subject of cannabis in this changing era of the media. And we have people from different parts of the media who are here with us today. We have Russ, who is the editor and founder of Northwest Leaf magazine, and to my left and your right. Next to him is Danny Danko at High Times magazine, and so if you want to get into a High Times medical cup, make friends with him fast. Next to him is Mickey Norris, the publisher of the West Coast Leaf newspaper with myself, and now the West Coast Leaf News Service. Let's see, Ben, tell us a little bit about your...
I'm Ben, I'm with The Stranger. I write the Pop column.
Okay, so that's your local newspaper here, weekly, I believe. Is that right?
The Alternative Weekly, for those who aren't aware.
And then Russ Belville, who most people know with High Times, I mean, he's with Normal, but he's an online media guru that we all can learn from. And so what we're going to be talking about is the changing aspects of the media here, and we're going to go through people. I'll give each person about 3 to 5 minutes to eat the mic and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. And why don't we just work our way from your left to my right. That'd be you, Wes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about facing different directions, but it works better if we're looking towards each other.
My name is Wes Abney. Like you said, I'm the editor and founder of Northwest Leaf magazine. We are Washington's longest running medical cannabis publication, and we actually started up just over 3 years ago as a newspaper. At that time, there were maybe 20 collectives all through Seattle, and we were just a little 16-page newspaper with an idea that patients deserved a little bit of information that was relevant specifically to them. You know, we go to so many different sources for our media, but at the time, here at least, there wasn't a lot of opportunities for patients to get direct information that was relevant to them. And so that's how we started, and the first year was a little bit slow as the industry developed, and actually what really has helped my magazine grow and the whole industry grow has been the emergence of other publications coming into the market. And once we saw other media sources coming in, it really helped the entire industry grow. And it's always kind of a funny question because people will ask me, what do you think of the other pop publications? And they always expect a little edge or tension, but the truth is that we're all sharing the same type of information. We're serving a huge group of people, and the fact that we have such a diverse amount of media in medical and recreational cannabis now really benefits everybody, including the publications themselves. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand about how the media is developing here, is that we're sharing something that if it weren't for the established media, nobody would be sharing it. We'd be stuck trying to find it in different random areas. So it's made things a lot better. And another thing that we really noticed is that as access points in Washington have started to become more business oriented and competitive in some ways with advertising, it has driven prices down for patients and it has driven quality up for patients. So the fact that access points are working as businesses has really brought in better medicine and fairer prices for patients. So we think it's a really good thing, and we're hoping to publish for another 4 years at least here in Washington.
All right, thank you so much, Wes. Congratulations on your publication.
Thank you.
And so this is a relatively young publication. I would say High Times has got to be the longest running cannabis magazine, and also they got called the Playboy of Pot. Danny Danko, you make your explanations. A lot of people say that.
Yeah, I mean that was the model actually at the time, was to sort of copy that centerfolds and all that. But to get information out beyond what the mainstream media was letting people know. And next year is our 40-year anniversary from 1974 to 2014. And obviously media's changed a lot in that time. I mean, now everything's moving digital. The information's all out there on the internet. The model really now is to give the information away in a lot of ways on the internet. Not so much charge people for it, but charge the advertisers. And that's a good model for the future. But as for media, the mainstream media is coming around. I mean, with things like the Sanjay Gupta story and all of that, they're coming around, but they're getting it wrong still. So it's our responsibility when they come to us for quotes, which they now do because they don't know. You know, it's a sensational issue for them, but you know they don't know the facts. So we've got to give them good quotes that service our movement, are accurate and well researched. And that's what I would say about mainstream media coming and trying to find out what this legalization thing and what the medical marijuana thing and all of that is all about. That's our responsibility, basically, as journalists or people in activism, when they come to us, to steer them in the right direction to help our movement. So yeah, I mean, at High Times, we're doing a lot of digital stuff now. We've got the magazine in digital format. You can read it on your tablets, and the links work to take you to the websites for the more information for advertising. Video things are incorporated in that. We launched a new website. I have a podcast that I do now that's free. You can listen to it on your phone. It's all about cannabis cultivation with interviews of breeders, people in the movement. I've had Russ on before, and that's the way media is changing in this era, and it's all happening very quickly. So I guess the thing I would emphasize is maintain your responsibility to the movement when you're speaking to people in the mainstream media, and make sure that they know our talking points, just like any other movement has. We really got to stick to the facts that marijuana is safer than alcohol. Marijuana is a medicine. Marijuana use is not harmful, and all of those things, and just keep pumping away, because we're winning and it's inevitable, and it's a really fun time and a good time to be watching all this happen.
And it takes a lot longer than you might think sometimes. So, one of the interesting things about High Times is it's got this long-time relationship with Normal, the political organization, and supportive of it and so forth. So that's really a great thing to see a publication do that. Now, Mickey Norris with the West Coast Leaf newspaper took the approach of using our contacts within the activist community to get the inside scoop on what's going on in these different news stories. So, Mickey, why don't you talk a little bit about that and where the West Coast Leaf is going?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So with my husband, Chris Conrad, we published the West Coast Leaf newspaper for 5 years, starting in 2008. Right now we're on an indefinite hiatus, and we're changing it into a different format, and I'm going to bring my friend Jeremy Daw on to speak about that transition. But we saw this as an extension of our activism, as informing the cannabis community about the news, the research, the cultural aspects of cannabis, things that are going on, and to make them more an informed electorate, so that they would know how to talk about the issue, they would know how to vote on issues, hopefully. And at our peak we had 170,000 distribution, and we brought it to dispensaries and assorted businesses and activists. I sent boxes of these newspapers to activists all over the place where they could distribute it to their network so that they would get informed. And even though we always had an online presence, our focus was in the print media, and that was really important. And to this day we still get phone calls from people saying, oh, we need this publication because I don't get online and this and that. But unfortunately, we needed to stop. It wasn't really particularly sustainable for me personally, but I won't go into that one. But before I hand the mic over to Jeremy, I just wanted to mention two organizations that I would really recommend for you all to get involved with, and that is, one of them is Drug Sense, and you can join local news lists, and they will send you the articles from, all the articles that are relevant to cannabis into your mailbox. There's usually people who are involved with that. And the other is stopthedrugwar.org, which is part of DRCnet, Drug Coordination Network. And they have a wonderful weekly digest of all of great news and analysis, and you can sign up for that at stopthedrugwar.org. So now that we are not going to be publishing, I brought a few copies of this is an earlier issue, and what we did like to do in our newspaper was also have a calendar of events so that people can know where to go. We had meeting listings as well, so people know how to plug in. And we also had a resource listing of all the various organizations that are doing the work so that people would get involved. And that was our main goal with this newspaper, was to get people involved and engaged and part of this movement, because we need as many people as possible to do the work to bring on the reform that we want. So I'd like to bring up Jeremy just to speak briefly about how we're transitioning from a print media to an online news service.
And also I point out that Jeremy is an editor at Cannabis Now magazine, so he has another kind of a media.
Thank you very much. And just very briefly, as you've already heard, the Leaf is going digital, and there are many very exciting things that we're implementing right now that will be coming down the road. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, the most exciting development is already well underway. And I was very encouraged to hear Danny Danko talk about what they're talking about, what they're already doing with High Times, because the Leaf is already engaged in the same kind of fight. We realize that there are many people in the mainstream media who have been fed lies about cannabis for so long. They now know that many of them are lies, but they're not exactly sure what the truth is. So the West Coast Leaf is already working on relationships with other independent newspapers and blogs and other kinds of journalist platforms in order to feed them news that we know is accurate, that we know counteracts the lies. And in a way, we're fighting kind of an epistemological war. Because if you can come up on top on Google, then you can establish the terms of the debate and establish the facts of the conversation. And we know that the US government has been using their bully pulpit to do this for years, but now the internet has blown it wide open. And so I'm so encouraged to know that we're not the only ones on this fight. And keep checking back to westcoastleaf.com. You're going to see very exciting things in the future.
All right. Yeah, Danny has done that.
I'd like to add something real quick. When you are dealing with the media, their first inclination is to ridicule us. They want to make the munchie joke because it's easy. And the thing that you have to remind them, and one of the tools that I use to remind them, is actually Mickey and Chris's book. They wrote a book called Shattered Lives, and it's about all the lives that have been destroyed. You can see their faces, and you can read it, and it's all there. You can use that book to show them that this is a serious issue, and not to ridicule us and not to make fun of it, because it's serious. It's a civil rights issue, and it's our right, and that's a wonderful resource. So it's an honor to have them on here, and it's a great way to make them understand the seriousness of this issue.
Oh, thank you, Danny. 2 points. One is that we haven't really talked about book media, but I don't think this panel is quite going to do that. The other thing is we have a piece of the display that Shattered Lives is based on is in the back corner. You have to go outside the tent to look at it. On the back, your right, my left.
Yeah, it's sad but true.
And so the next speaker we have is he's somebody who didn't deal with the print media, at least as far as I know, went straight into the digital world of. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Ben.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ben.
I'm from The Stranger. Chris, I better just take it from here.
Yeah, you better take it from here. Yeah, before I introduce you for something else.
So I write the weekly pot news for The Stranger, which is a local paper. Does anybody read The Stranger? That is the most people I've ever gotten from that question at any stage. Everyone else is usually like, what? What are you saying? And so the reason that some people ask why I write the pot column, the reason that I write the pot column is because first off, I'm a sort of prolific writer. I write really long emails. Some of you do that, maybe. And I started emailing Dominic Holden, the news editor for The Stranger. I started writing a weekly newsletter after that as well, about legal pot right after the election. And so I would email Dominic every week or two, and I would say, this is what I would write about this week in Pot Kettle Black, or I'd pick a funny name for my column that week. And I'd say, well, you can write about it too, but I would have just given you an article if you would have let me. And so for months I did that. I just like, and he never really responded. Sometimes he'd say thanks, or whatever. I just, oh, no problem. I just keep emailing him every week, right? Like after my newsletter, I'd be 4 a.m. sending him this, anyway. So come February, he actually broke down and allowed me a 4-week trial with them, and I've been there since, writing weekly columns. And so my goal, I believe that cannabis the plant and cannabis the culture needs what I call deep advocacy. It needs deep advocates in all of us. And sometimes we can get lost individually in what that means. There's a lot of things that can distract us, whether it's money or life or stress or kids or jobs or whatever it is. But I try to go back to the plant and to the people. And this is a war on a culture, and this is a war on a plant that is part of that culture. And so I try to keep that in mind, and I try to create a baseline where people can have the knowledge that they need to jump from, to be able to join the conversation, because the conversation has become quite complicated here and grand. It's become a lot bigger. It's harder to understand what's going on. The liquor board's doing stuff. There's all kinds of news happening in medical marijuana. There's a lot of things going on. Most people don't have the time or the wherewithal to follow all of this. So I try to distill it down for people, one, because I have a deep need to know what is happening, and also I would like other people to share that knowledge in hopes that we can all have a part in that conversation, and we can all intelligently contribute to that conversation, which can sometimes be difficult in our community to actually get to that baseline where you're not just ranting about something that someone told you that's incorrect. And so I've tried to do that in my Stranger article. I've tried to do that in my weekly email. And somebody talked about conversing with the media as well. In my weekly email, I add more people from the media to my email list every week than anybody else. I pretty much go out of my way to email people who write about local pot stories and say, listen, great story. Would you like to be on my email list? It's free. It'll help you. And invariably they say yes. And so I try to have balance, but at the same time, it's very clear that I'm an advocate. I make no bones about it. Like I'm speaking my opinion about where we should be going a lot of times. And so I put that in my column, and I put that in my newsletter. And in my newsletter, a lot of folks read that sort of tone and that tenor, and it's my hope that they sort of take some of that on. And a lot of that is based in levity, which I consider a very valuable thing. And it was mentioned earlier that people need to take this seriously, and I agree, but I also think that we need to accept levity into our lives, and we need to use it as a vehicle for change. We need to use humor, honestly. So I wrote a column this week that I've never had anything blow up, right? Like viral, as they call it. I wrote a column about cops handing out Doritos this week, right? And that thing, munchies, right? That's a funny joke. The only thing they wanted to call Hempfest to talk about this week was Doritos. They didn't want to talk about the drug war. They didn't want to talk about prisoners. We still got prisoners for pot in our state. Like, I'm offended. I'm mad that we got prisoners in our state prisons for pot, right? And so, but that's not the conversation this week. And I have to accept that. I have to do what I could do this week. And what we're doing this week is talking about munchies. That's the way we get to the fact that pot is benign, pot is harmless, munchies are great. We're funny. We're like. And so I try to use levity, and I want to impress upon all pot people that we need to accept humor in our culture and in our lives and not be so thin-skinned. Because a lot of us get thin-skinned around here, and we start to confuse who are our friends and who are not our friends, who's out for us and who's not out for us, who's on our team, who's us versus them. And so, I just want to encourage everybody to be open, even to criticism, even to a joke. Make a joke about yourself. There's nothing that connects with an audience like a person who can laugh at themselves, And so don't be afraid of that. Embrace it. Also, everyone is the new media. Like, I wrote this article, but then it went everywhere because everyone else wrote it, right? And everyone else tweeted it. And so you have that power as well. The media is being democratized. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thanks a lot. And so you can You can see what happens when you have an out-of-town moderator on the panel. I'm always hoping you have that now, but
Yeah, I run that down.
it's a stranger is like the focus today. I also want to just toss on what he said about the joke. It's like I work as an expert witness, and I always feel like if I get the jury to laugh a couple times during a trial, you got a better chance of acquittal. I don't know if this is really true, but somebody else who makes me laugh is at the end there. Radical Russ Belville. We've all heard him online, blogging at Belville, excuse me. And so, I'll let you pronounce your name correctly and go forward from here.
Thank you, thank you. Yes, I'm Russ Belville, Radical Russ on the air, and I'm the director of 420radio.org, which is 24-hour marijuana legalization public radio. And so I run it. Yeah, thank you. Danny's show, Free Weed, is on the network. We've got Subcool and Jorge Cervantes. If you're into growing, they can teach a whole lot there. Herb Thrasher giving you some rock and roll, some metal. Coral Reefer with kind of the social aspects of things. Jody Emery's on the network. We've got, and I come, I don't know if you can tell, I'm in radio. I come from this background of talk radio, and I did that on XM Satellite for a while, and then I worked for Normal for 4 years as outreach coordinator, and the way that I knew how to do outreach was to do talk radio. And it's something that I feel is an interesting medium to work in that you're in people's heads while they're sometimes doing other things. Like, I had one, I go to these festivals, and I had one very long-haired, tattooed fella come up to me and say, "Dude, we listen to you when we're trimming." I'm like, well, that's interesting. And then I'm in Texas, and I have this little old bald-headed, white-haired judge, former judge, come to me and says, "Barton, I'd like to talk to you. When I'm on my commute from Denton, Texas, I have to go to the Capitol. I'm listening to your podcast. I've learned so much." Like, wow, what a breadth of audience that is. I mean, retired judge and tie-dyes, everything. And that's kind of what the idea of 420 Radio is that this legalization fight is global. It's nationwide. And out here on the West Coast, we sometimes get a little spoiled because things are good. And now we're arguing about, not if it's going to be legalized, but how it's going to be legalized. Well, back east in the Midwest, they're still talking about if. They're still talking about prison time and serious repercussions. And I think we need to hear those voices from across the country. And I even have shows from England and Spain. What's going on in the UK and what's going on in Europe. And we learn so much from each other. I've been fortunate to do this show and to influence a lot of activists, people that are working in England, people that are working in Georgia, people that are working in Texas. And the media that we're working with now, as far as this 21st century podcasting and all of this, really enables anyone who can get a hold of a microphone the ability to reach, a big, wide audience. Podcasting basically is just recording a show on MP3 and you upload it to places like iTunes and people download it automatically and it becomes part of their daily listening habits. They plug it into their car when they're driving to work or when they're getting the kids ready to school, whatever. They got on headphones while they're working out. And so this steady feed of news and information is coming in and from all sorts of different sources. And we do this both as podcasts. Now the technology has gotten to the point where we can do it as live streaming, where there's an app called TuneIn that people can get on their smartphones. You can get on your iPhone, Android, all that. These TuneIn apps where you can get live radio stations, and usually they're, WCFT from, Connecticut or whatever. But it can also be you. The technology to do it is so cheap, and a lot of it's free, actually. A lot of it's open source. And you can actually have your radio station competing with, the big boys in New York or whatever. And, content wins. And I just felt like, I'd been flipping through channels all my life in cable and seeing, the Golf Channel and the Speed Channel. It's not even about meth. The Speed Channel, all these different things. I thought there ought to be a weed channel. There ought to be a marijuana legalization channel that's not about, there's some smoking and having fun to it, but the major focus of it is the activism. I made this by activists, for activists, to kind of motivate and coordinate all of our efforts and to learn from one another and to provide a place where people can get their voice out. So it's 420radio.org, and we work with a lot of great sponsors. It is a public radio kind of thing, so I have to do pledge drives like OPB, well that's Oregon Public Broadcast, PBS, when they get on and say, please become a member, help support us. Well, that's the way we work. So if you log on there, you can support as low as $9.99 a month. and that just pays the bills, the bandwidth, the rent, all that kind of stuff. We're a nonprofit organization. We're sponsored by great organizations, like we work with LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We have a regular segment with cops who say we should legalize drugs. Regular segment with Moms for Marijuana, where moms are talking about how ending the drug war is actually the best way to help the children. We work with Normal quite a bit. We interview Dr. Mitch Earlywine every week, live question and answers with a doctor who knows all about the science, history, culture, and health of marijuana. We got Danny Danko on once a month answering your cultivation questions live. It's talk radio. It's a real movement. You were talking about being serious about it. We're serious about this. I do news segment, headlines, analysis, opinion. It's all about treating this seriously, get the real information out to the people, and providing a way for other people to give back to us. And another way that you can help, just one last thing, is we work with a group called National Cannabis Coalition that helps sponsor the show and help us travel and so forth. And you can get more information about them if you text NCC to 420-420. It's on your cell phone, NCC, like National Cannabis Coalition. To 420-420, it's a free text thing, and they'll give you some information. And helping them helps me and helps us, and we can keep on the air. Thanks.
Fantastic. And being serious, we got to get ready to wrap up here. We got just about 7 minutes left. And so I did want to bring up a couple of other things. One, I'm not sure it's totally clear about what a news service does. What a news service does is, like, if you guys wanted to start a magazine, or if High Times needed an article on something, that a news service provides a copy that you can have, so you don't have to hire your own reporters. And so that's what we're talking about there. The other thing I would like to mention is that Casper Leach of Time for Hemp is around here. You should really check out Time for Hemp Radio, which is online, and it's also with American Freedom Radio. And if you get a chance to see Casper Leach, say hello to him. Now, I guess what I would say is we wanted to have question and answers. There's not much time, so what I would have, my question to the group is, what did you forget to mention that you wanted to say? You each have this time to just throw out one more comment before we go.
Well, I guess one thing I heard a lot of you guys talk about was how the online world is really developing in the media, and it is impossible to ignore that through the internet, through the radio, it is possible to reach so many more people, and we are gathering a lot of strength with that. I think it's also important to note too, though, that as you know, Seattle, we lost the PI just a few years ago. We've gone to one major market, newspaper town. What are thriving are local media sources, small community newspapers, small community publications, where people are able to get their local information. And that's kind of always been our approach with Northwest Leaf, is although we're getting larger and larger each month, we still have that local feel where people know if they can pick it up, they can hold it. And there's something really cool about being able to hold your information in the hand, put it on the coffee table for later, and share it with a friend. And on that note, we are actually getting ready to do some internet expansion and everything else, kind of following in High Times footsteps and these guys, because the internet is going to be the future for us to share our message on a broader format. And I'm excited for it. Thank you.
One thing I failed to mention is the importance of social media, meaning Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Vine, whatever it is you do. You can connect them all to one thing, so it's not like you're just constantly putting stuff out. But if you write a blog or you write a story and you don't put it out on social media, it has really no chance of going viral. It could be great content, but it doesn't get picked up. So, definitely get yourself on Twitter. I'm at Danny Danko if you want to follow me. And follow the people. You can use social media exactly the way you want to. You just follow the people you want to follow. If you want activism news, you can follow that. If you want, music or anything, you can follow all the things that you're interested in, and then, you retweet the things that you're interested in, other people pick it up, and, that's where people get their information nowadays, is those places. So, that's what I would mention, is the importance of social media. Get involved in that as well.
In fact, Danny stole what I was going to say. So just to add to that about social media, there's another side to social media. Most of the news organizations that are in social media right now, they're still practicing top-down, hierarchical, this is what it is, this is the story, now will you please tweet it out for us? That's how Huffington Post operates. But I think that in the cannabis community, we have an opportunity to upend that. We are a collectivist community, and in social media, we can make the news in a collectivist way. It doesn't have to be top down. So if you want to help, if you've got a blog, and get it scanned by Google, put in the keywords, talk about cannabis, talk about medicine, right? Instead of saying intoxication, say relaxation or social use or something like that. These things matter because Google is increasingly determining for most people what the truth is. And that's kind of scary, but the one good thing about Google is that they open it up to us. We can use it to our advantage. So get blogging, and let's all link to each other, let's all tweet each other, let's all Facebook each other, because we can actually affect truth as defined by most of the young people in this country by using SEO tactics like this. So let's all get involved.
That's great. And remember also to include common misspellings in your keywords, because people spell things really terribly when they check online. Then?
I spell things wrong anyway, so if you search for the regular spell, you probably won't even find my spelling. First off, I got a couple of quick bullet points. First off, thank you to everybody and to Washington State for passing Initiative 502 and legalizing cannabis. From my heart to you, thank you, if nobody has told you that. Second, don't let them ban hash.
Yeah.
Third, your list, your bullet points, your important stuff comes in threes. Remember that your press releases come in one page, not two. And then finally, if anybody wants to be on my email list, I send out a weekly email newsletter, which I was talking about earlier, which I think is a good place for people to have a baseline of information to stay informed. Just get in touch with me, like right here, and I'll write down emails and add you to the list.
Yes? What did you forget to say?
Well, the social media thing, I can add to that. If you put Radical Russ into any social media, you'll find me. So Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Not yet. I gotta get a decent phone for Instagram. My lousy phone won't do Instagram. Anyway, but I'm out at Facebook and all those stuff. Love to have you out there. I'm tweeting a lot. I write a lot of articles for a lot of places, so it's kind of a high volume feed. But I hope you enjoy it. I guess the one thing I wanted to just end on was we're serious about this being public radio. If you know someone who is interested in having a show, I can give them the instructions and information how to put it on for a very, very low cost, if not at all free, depending on what equipment you already have. And also always looking for businesses, sponsors, and nonprofits to help get the information out. This is all about sharing information and connecting networks of people. So if you're interested, I've got plenty of these cards, and I'd love to talk to you. I'm at the Oil Slick Handmade booth. As you just go past the main stage, we're recording back there, and I'll be speaking on the main stage at 12:45. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Russ. Thanks to the panel. Now we're going to let Nikki Norris have the last word here before people go over to the information hut.
Okay. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Yay for pot.
Hey, don't blame pot. Okay.
Whatever you do.
Right. So the West Coast Leaf News Service, as the West Coast Leaf print form, well, the westcoastleaf.com is still adding new articles, even though we're not printing it in print form. But we also take submissions from other writers. If you're interested in writing for the West Coast Leaf, it just has to be truthful and interesting. And Chris is the editor, and Jeremy, I think, is helping me with editing as well. And they will be, taking your articles and making it digestible for other print publications. Because the point is that we know that some of the print media that's out there really is lacking in information, and we know that people really still need it. But regarding the photo exhibit, if you could take a few minutes, it's in the corner there. It's the part of that green banner. It's below the green banner on the front side, and on the back side, we brought some stories about prisoners of the drug war, people who are currently in prison right now, and it's very important to keep them in our thoughts, and that's our goals of why we're doing what we're doing, is to get these people out of prison, and so we don't have to go to prison ourselves. So if you can take a few minutes, it'd be nice to learn about these people who are languishing in our jails today.
All right, and so with that, we have to thank our panel for being here today and wrap up. We're going to send our people over to the information hut, knowledge hut, excuse me, if you want to continue the conversation. And I'm not going to use this opportunity to pump the westcoastleaf.com again, even though it's tempting. So thank you very much for being here. Let's give everybody a big round of applause. Thank you, guys.
We were talking about it activated me. I mean, I was already in the industry. I was already.
Jeremy Dog. Best president. Sounds like really do right now. Oh, we've been blowing up. Yeah, you should see us at 401. Actually, I've done some with you.
Not taken personally.
It's a start. Yeah.